What industries provide the greatest opportunities given the aftermath of the crisis? Blah, 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 have increased people's movement, have increased surveillance, and public health safety will be a focus. Artificial intelligence is hot. The cybersecurity is hot. There's going to be increased surveillance. I was listening to BBC before I started this broadcast that there's an app now that you can fill in the numbers voluntarily, and when someone that has, assuming they filled in the numbers in the app, that had been corona positive or had corona, your phone rings, so you don't get within 10 feet of them. And that's going to be a lot of fun on a date. At what point do you stop and use spare cash to prop up my own company? Try to get as many loans as you can. You know, I know where you're from. Try to get as many loans as you can from the government, non-recourse loans. And then, before they close the doors, you use your own cash. They say bank are not really loaning any money out to businesses during this crisis. It still holds true for QLA. No, that's not true. How or if does the QLA method change the forecast of the economic downturn? The economic downturn is coming. I agree more or less with the Goldman Sachs guesstimate. The GDP is going to be down about 30+% for this quarter that we're in right now. It could be worse. I don't necessarily agree with their forecast that we should bounce back in the third quarter to 5, 6, 7, 8%. If they're using the second quarter as a base, that's true. But if they're using last year as a base, that's not going to happen. Will the Canadian ever be the same again? Where do you see the price of oil going? I see it going down as I'm filming this. Oil is about $21 a barrel. And that's after OPEC and some consortium of Russia and maybe even the United States. So they cut the oil about 9.5, 10 million barrels. The Saudis say it's equivalent to 12.5 million barrels. But we have about 30 million barrels a day oversupply. And on the news of them cutting oil, 10 million barrels, oil went down $3. That tells you. There's a massive overproduction of hydrocarbons on the planet. I've been saying this since 2014, but nobody listens. Now when, it's like, during the wartime, everybody gets religion when they're in the foxhole. Nobody wants to be in the foxhole alone. So now you listen to QLA more. If you had done what some of you people that have asking these questions have been asking me questions, or I should say, went to the seminar 4 or 5 years ago and haven't done fuck all. Now you expect QLA to come and save you. Well, some of you, it can still save, but many of you are just going to drown. It's too fucking bad. To proceed in transactions, shall we actively talk to potential buyers in these days for acquisitions or wait some weeks? Now, you fucking moron! As maybe many of them will be more trouble so we can buy them. No. You're going to start a conversation. You can close a deal in 72 hours if it's 100% seller finance. The longer you wait, you want them to remember your name 3 weeks from now, not the guy that called them that morning. And that's why you have to keep in strict contact with them so they don't forget you. When is it time to start buying biz and deals again? I mean, now. Patience is not my strength. Yes, we know it. Is it better to buy the bad loans later from the bank? That's another alternative because you have money. Non-performing loans you're talking about. If a vendor is holding to a normal price now, do we bin them and move on or try to change them? No, bin them. You know better than that, How's your athletic career been? If we were looking at 3 to 5 times for valuation before, what would we be looking now? 1 to 3. If it's got cash flow. If it's got no fucking cash flow, then nothing. What guidelines can you provide for a company valuation going forward? You know better than this, you fucking engineer. By the way, how are your kids? How are you doing with your kids? No, it's some fraction of what they were based on, and the purchase price has to be based on it producing that cash flow. Otherwise, you're not paying them. Is it a good idea to start rolling them up? And yes, it is, in the next 6 months. How would a market crash affect our capital raising strategy? Get the money any way humanly possible, but any particular sources of capital, the same ones I taught you when you were here, you dipshit. I could use some Italian food when I think some Italian food when I read this guy. View of hospitality industry moving forward, especially restaurants, but hotels. Dismal, I'm afraid to say. But I look forward to Sally and I look forward to coming and having some dinner with you when we can travel. What are the two best sectors offering opportunities that are specifically, and what specifically is the opportunity for each? Still healthcare, and it's still IT, high tech. Remember, if it's not tech or healthcare, short it. Long time no see. Given new Corona measures, SBA loans, does it change QLA process, incorporate sooner than later? No, you incorporate when you have a deal. If any better place, in which jurisdictions, currencies, assets, values would you rather be than all others to get more value through the crisis? Stick with a strong currency, stick with the pound, stick with the dollar, the euro, as long as the euro stays and doesn't dissolve. What concessions and contingencies would you negotiate or renegotiate into the deal to account for the negative impact of Corona? In addition to making the seller partnering, a partner buying 60 to 75% of the business versus 75 to 100% of the business, 100% of the seller financing, or seller must be a guarantor. Well, I hadn't thought about that. That's a good point. If he's so in love with his business, he should be able to guarantee the loan, the seller, that is. What are the economic implications? U.S. and China, everything's going to go down. Everything's going to go down. We are currently raising $100 million finance facility for projects. We have an in principle agreement for $60 million and are working the equity side now. Usually the funders want to some site visits as part of their face-to-face. What arguments or persuasion can we use with them to convince them just to proceed without the physical visit and do any checks virtually instead of so the funding of our facility is not delayed? The only thing I could think of is to have them visit the sites by drones. Currently moving forward in 3 international acquisition dialogues, we generally see competing offers with higher upfront payments from PwC, EY, Deloitte. The sellers stay on board and participate in the equity. Total potential upside is higher than competing offers, and the sellers prefer the like-minded culture approach with us. How can we best present the sellers that we need to accept more earnouts to compensate for the uncertainties? Yes, more earnouts. Any tips for serially applying QLA over multiple industries? The only thing is that we have several guys working on conglomerates now. Conglomerates are selling lesser multiples, and they're not as popular. What's my advice of existing in the business this year? I mean, it's going to be down. I'm not writing off 2020, but there's certain industries that are just dead, and they're going to stay dead. What non-obvious industry do you think would be in high demand the next period and will keep staying that way? There aren't any non-obvious. Everybody is pretty much equal in this Corona environment. We'll be getting into oil again. If so, should we? No, I'm not getting into anything. So, there are funds. There are major funds around the world that manage tens of billions of dollars that say that a fossil fuel is dead. I don't agree with that, at least not in my lifetime. But fossil fuel is a tough nut to crack. And when you go to these companies that are in the fossil fuel business, I mean, they do not believe, they won't allow themselves to believe that fossil fuel is dead. Otherwise, they've wasted 20, 30, 40 years of their life into an industry that's dying. But I certainly don't see the fossil fuels like buggy whips. I certainly don't see fossil fuel currently in the short term or intermediate term like Smith Corona typewriters. Obviously, they don't have buggy whips anymore, and they don't have Smith Corona typewriters. How will the activity and deals evolve immediately post-lockdown and over the next 3 to 5 years? Okay, first of all, there's not going to be any direct, in my judgment, any direct post-lockdown. Lockdown is going to be phased out. And you will be able to see, and what's going to be locked down, unlocked down first. I mean, supermarkets, what we call the essential businesses, but certainly not necessarily movie theaters, not necessarily cruise lines, not necessarily airlines. Some of these businesses are going to be changed forever. Now, I personally think that there should be a shakeup, and I would be more restrictive in government bailouts than the government's being. What is the major difference strategy now versus previously? There is none. It's the same. Will there, other than more output, more calls? Will there still be a future for banks, financial institutions, and stock market? You think that this is a moment that the governments will take over control of the banks? No, that's all bullshit. That's conspiracy theory. You know better than that, even though you're a Dutchman that fucking lives in America now. What to do with valuations in these uncertain times? No, it's the valuations you had before don't mean anything. Okay? And unless you structure the purchase price to what it's going to earn in the next 6 to 36 months, you're wasting your time. If we are in a service-based time and material biz, should we consider looking to pivot into industries where more tangible financial assets? No, what you want to do is you want to be in a business that produces cash flow, irrespective of assets. Do you see any specific obstacles or opportunities for QLA process via the steps? The same steps, just more output. How will lenders look at the recovery timeline? Well, that's a multi-pronged question. The lenders are first of all going to try to get all the money out. This is in America, that the government's guaranteeing first, and their government timeline is going to be based on their own internal numbers. No one is dead just yet, but the CIC executive agreement, changing control agreement, quite a few have an interest in bailing to save their own personal skin. Okay? Everyone is now interested in their own savior. CIC, that's changing control, always gets top priority at this point. How does Mr. Peña recommend dealing with these agreements when buying from a motivated seller? Well, I mean, changing control is different now. That was the old world. Changing control may mean nothing now. You just have to negotiate harder. Mazel tov, by the way. How would you value the business now as the last 3 years' accounts? I wouldn't. I value it on the next 6 months' accounts, which leads me to believe that there's a couple ways to handle this. Either the close is going to be a slow close, which will probably happen anyway because the banks are going to be very careful, but it's going to be based on the numbers they produce during the environment. And so the whole value proposition has changed. How will the lending situation change in 2021 in the face of financial crisis that will make 2008 look like a tea party? How will it affect the QLA model and financial presentation? It's not going to affect the QLA model whatsoever. And I didn't say it's going to make the 2008 look like a tea party. But I do say that the financial tsunami is going to be affect a lot more of the world than we think. It's going to take a lot longer. It's going to cost a lot more. Will any financial institution lend against the target's financials prior to the business closing? Would this be in anticipation for when the business does open? No, it's not likely.